When we think of the term superhero, we think of a character who is altruistic, willing to sacrifice themselves at all costs for the greater good. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that there is a slew of superheroes out there who do not fall into that category. And while that doesn't make us love them any less, there are a few that, if we cross paths with them in real life, we probably wouldn't be overly inclined to trust them. And that's how many of their peers feel too. So today we are taking a closer look at those heroes with our list of the top 10 superheroes who shouldn't be trusted. Starting us off in at number 10, Nick Fury. 2 words. Original Sin. That's the title of the story event in which Marvel fans everywhere were shocked to discover that Nick Fury wasn't as noble as we all thought he was. Let's backtrack a second though. Nick Fury, at least the more contemporary version of the character, is largely associated with espionage. As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's a certain level of secrecy constantly surrounding his work, an image that was further perpetuated by his appearance in the MCU. Now, Original Sin saw Nick Fury as the man responsible for the murder of the Watcher, and had his eyes taken out, becoming his replacement, called the Unseen. The story arc is continuously panned by fans for being one of Marvel's most disliked events in recent history. In at number 9, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch often finds herself on lists like these, in which she's stated as untrustworthy because of her history. Sure, she has had her struggles with mental health in the comics, and sure, she killed a bunch of Avengers once because she was having a severe mental breakdown, and yes, she did alter the fabric of reality and removed almost all of the mutant population's powers. And of course, there are all reasons for other heroes to be wary of her at times. That being said though, she's also one of the most powerful members of the Avengers and has proven herself to be a valuable ally. So she still finds herself on our list because of her history, but of course, take that with a grain of salt. And let's not forget, the MCU version of the character saw herself locked away in the Avengers Tower thanks to Tony Stark, who didn't trust that she could control her powers, and therefore during Captain America Civil War was better off kept away than allowed out and about in public. Kinda harsh, Tony. In at 8, Quicksilver. Unlike his twin sister, Quicksilver is in complete control of his powers and is mentally stable for the most part. He's just a bit of Known for being rather selfish at times, Quicksilver takes after his father Magneto more than Scarlet Witch does. This is something that really took shape though between 1991 and 1993 when Quicksilver was a mainstay in X-Factor. His personality began to take shape as a character who was easily irritated and very arrogant, which writer Peter David would justify as a natural consequence of his powers. Now to Quicksilver, the rest of the world is moving in slow motion, which gets on his nerves, causing him to feel impatient and develop a superiority complex. Of course, this has resulted in him usually acting out of his best interest or the interest of his sister, who often is one of the only individuals that Pietro cares for unconditionally. Otherwise, he's pretty darn selfish. In at number 7, Eric O'Grady. Eric O'Grady is the worst. The character, who was first introduced in Irredeemable Ant-Man issue 1 in 2006, is the third person to take on the Ant-Man mantle, and irredeemable he was. O'Grady's most defining traits were his immoral attitudes and behaviors. The character, who had gotten the Ant-Man suit off of the corpse of his dead friend, would go on and hit on his dead friend's ex-girlfriend and then get her pregnant. He maimed a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent with his suit's jets, burning half of this agent's face, resulting in him being deaf and blind on one side of his head. He would also save women that he found attractive solely so he could take them out on dates afterwards, and if he didn't get an invitation back to their place for sex, he would shrink down and follow them into their apartments, peeping on them. He once peeped on Carol Danvers that way. To add insult to injury, he would constantly renounce his ways and claimed that he was working on becoming a proper hero, but never really followed through on those vows to change. Overall, when you've got a superhero who uses their powers to take advantage of others, that is definitely an individual who cannot be trusted. Luckily, he's no longer Ant-Man. In at 6, Wally West. Alright, spoilers abound, friends. We'll be discussing events from the 2018 Heroes in Crisis story arc by Tom King at this number. If you haven't read it and want to, you might want to skip this. Good? We good? Cool. Heroes in Crisis was Tom King's attempt at addressing mental health issues within the superhero community. In it, there is a shooting at Sanctuary, a rehabilitation center for superheroes that was put together by DC's holy trinity of Batman, Wonder Woman, and the Man of Steel. The whole story is a murder mystery, and towards the end, we discover that neither Harley Quinn or Booster Gold, the prime suspects, are responsible, but rather it was Wally West who caused the shooting thanks to his own psychological breakdown, having been dealing with the PTSD of his entire family being wiped from existence, and then discovering the equally complex files of other patients at Sanctuary. He was overwhelmed, and in an attempt to cover up his actions, he ran to the future, murdered his future self, and then brought his corpse back to make it look like he was also a victim of the shooting. Eventually the truth comes out and Wally is locked up in a Justice League prison. While we understand why he did what he did, the character has become quite unreliable because of it. Wonder how long it's gonna take Batman to get over this and be nice to him again. Remember how long it took him to get over Hal Jordan as Parallax? Years, people. Wally's got a long road ahead. Thing is, this isn't the first time Wally has lost the trust of other heroes, but this is definitely by far the biggest instance that has proven that he is untrustworthy. And at number 5, ZATANNA. ZATANNA may not have been responsible for a mass shooting of superheroes, but she did cover up a rape and tampered with the memories of others. Identity Crisis is a story arc that came out in 2004 and is somewhat of a murder mystery itself. It begins with the death of Sue Dibney, the wife of the elongated man, and over the course of the story, it's revealed that Dr. Light once raped Sue at the JLA satellite headquarters. ZATANNA, along with Adam, Black Canary, Hawkman, Hal Jordan, and Barry Allen, agreed to mind wipe both of them, which practically lobotomized Dr. Light, turning him into an ineffectual buffoon. It's also revealed that another mind wipe had occurred with their knowledge, with ZATANNA mind wiping the members of the Secret Society of Supervillains when they found out their identities. Now, when Batman finds out all of this, he is not cool with it, because of course he's Batman, he wouldn't be. And then we learn that Batman had his mind wiped as well after objecting to the solution. Green Arrow, when confessing to Bruce, also implies that this mind wipe trick has been used in other cases. Now, to be fair, other heroes were also in cahoots with ZATANNA, so she didn't act alone. But she was the one who pulled the trigger, so to speak. And fun fact, this story arc was a pivotal point in Batman's history, because from here on out, he became notoriously more paranoid than ever, largely shaping some of the character's behavior that we're familiar with today. I mean, after all that, can you blame him? In at 4, EROS. Star Fox aka EROS is another character on this list whose history of sexual harassment and treatment of those he saves makes him an unreliable individual. In 2005, he was put on trial for sexual assault, accused of using his powers to seduce a woman who was happily married. Jennifer Walters aka She-Hulk is his defense lawyer, with her firm having been contracted by Star Fox's father. Through the course of the story, Jennifer begins to suspect that Star Fox has used his powers on her too, and then he's banned from the courtroom when he begins to use his abilities to alter the witnesses' testimonies. Star Fox's father teleports him back home to Titan, where he receives another trial, and the Living Tribunal, who's clearly been watching this like it's some sort of fascinating soap opera, intervenes and brings Jennifer on as the prosecuting attorney. It's later revealed that Star Fox used his powers on She-Hulk to influence her relationship and marriage to John Jameson. Overall, not cool. And at number 3, Namor. Namor is another case of a character who has always had his best interests at heart, but that should not be surprising. It's been a defining characteristic for Namor since his earliest appearances in the Golden Age. Debuting in 1939, Namor was initially an antagonist created to fight against the then android Human Torch in a clash of fire versus water. But while he began as a villain during World War II, he would join up with the Invaders, a team that consisted of himself, the Human Torch, and Captain America. Largely credited as being the first real anti-hero in comics, Namor often works towards his own personal goals and the goals of Atlantis, which he rules over. In bigger Marvel Universe-wide conflicts, he often chooses the side that is the most beneficial for him. Not to say that he isn't altruistic, but dude just knows what he wants. Moving on to number 2, we have SENTRY. SENTRY is a character who, in the story that he was introduced in, was established as an unreliable character right from the get-go. And that's not because of any sort of selfish or immoral reason. It is because he has an evil alter ego living inside of him with enough power to be a massive threat to the whole Marvel Universe. This alter ego, known as the Void, is so strong that SENTRY himself agreed to have his mind wiped, along with the minds of the rest of the universe, to forget that he ever existed. In 2000, in SENTRY issue 1, we learned that Robert Reynolds, his civilian alias, begins to remember being a superhero and remembers his interactions with other heroes. It's later revealed in the series that he worked with Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom to alter everyone's memories as an attempt to keep the Void at bay and prevent it from harming anyone else. It's the ultimate sacrifice, but unfortunately his memory comes back, and so does the Void. And finally, in at number 1, Hank Pym. If you're a fan of our channel, you've probably heard me discuss Hank Pym on numerous occasions. The character, despite being one of Marvel's oldest and a founding member of the Avengers, has had a long history of being impacted by poor mental health and poor writing, and thus has created some of the biggest controversies over the years. Even those unfamiliar with Hank's history have likely heard of Hank Pym wife-beater at some point in time. It's also commonly believed that this history is why Scott Lang was chosen to helm Ant-Man in the MCU. Now, we could be here all day listing off the things that Hank has done that makes him an unreliable superhero. The short of it though, he's responsible for creating Ultron, he became schizophrenic and attacked a foe who had surrendered, he tried to get out of being court-martialed by the Avengers by concocting a scheme that could have put the lives of the Avengers in danger, then he beat Janet when she objected to it. There is so much more than that too. And most recently, Ultron took over his body, essentially used him as a flesh suit, and then messed with the heroes of the 616 yet again. And then Hank got his soul eaten by a demon in the Soul Stone. Hank feels like a character who has been in a vulnerable position for decades, and is always taken advantage of, causing more trouble than good. We feel for you, Pym. We really, really do. Alright, there we have it, friends. What other superheroes do you think are unreliable or untrustworthy? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know your thoughts. If you dug this video, you guys know what to do. Hit that like button, be sure to share it with a friend, and if you guys want to hang out with us some more and watch some more videos, be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd. And if you have already, thanks. In the meantime though, thank you for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video.